Welcome to the Aerospace Ambition podcast. I'm Marius, your host and an engineer passionate about the intersection of sustainable aviation and AI. In this episode, we are going to talk about how AI can be used to prevent contrails. I'm thrilled to welcome Sebnem Erzan to our podcast. Sebnem is the head of travel, sustainability and transport and of global partnerships at Google, based in Zurich. With over 12 years at Google, she has held several key positions. Sebnem holds a bachelor's and a master's degree in economics from the Bosphorus University, and her expertise spans strategy, business development, digital marketing, and sustainability. Sebnem, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Nice to have you and nice to add the perspective of Google. But before we go into that, I want to ask a brief personal question because I read in preparation that you have 2 daughters.
Yes.
That makes you even more invested in the future, I suppose. And I'm wondering, how do you envision the future of transport for them? Do you reckon that in, let's say, 20 years, the world will still be as interconnected as it is today?
Yeah, so I have 2 daughters, so I'm a proud mom, so to say. They are now 15 and 18. So how they experience things and how they look at the world is a little bit different than ours. Like when you touch the transport piece, for me, for example, it was very surprising when the older one was going to be 18. All I had in mind when I was going to be 18 was to have my driving license and have a car, so to say. And then we were like, oh, would you like to have a car? And you apply for the driving license. And then, I mean, luckily we are living in Zurich, but she said, no, like I don't need a car. I just use the public transport. It's very convenient. So they have a different mindset, which is very good and promising. Of course, it makes me more conscious about the choices that we make today, because seeing all the things happening because of the climate change, of course, makes me more invested in this area because I also have 2 daughters.
Right, and maybe also a difference in terms of you and your daughters could be that when you were younger, then maybe you perceived Google differently than it is being perceived today, because earlier it was this tech startup, right, and search engine, but now it's being perceived more and more within a role of sustainability. And that leads me to the question, what is Google's role in promoting sustainable aviation?
Yeah, I mean, you're so right. When I was a kid, Google was only a place that we were looking for information. And now I have been in Google for 12 years, but also the world is changing and how we are approaching is also changing. So basically what I can say, like we are a platform that have many users. So many users come to our platform daily for different reasons. And of course, we have products to answer those demands or those reasons. And travel planning is one of them. So we feel huge responsibility to help our users to make informed decisions for any choices that they're making. So sustainability is at the heart of Google for our own operations for a long time. It's been our 3rd decade, so to say. But a couple of years ago, we also set a very ambitious goal of saying, oh, we will help 1 billion users to make more informed decisions about sustainable choices through our products and services. And travel is one of them. And of course, when we started thinking about this, aviation is the one that has a higher impact. So we started with that. So this is the first role we have, like the responsibility to our users. And the second piece is we are a technology company. So we are investing in technology, we are using machine learning, we are using AI, we have models, methodologies. So we are also thinking, how can we help the industry, the whole ecosystem, airlines, OTAs, policymakers, like you name it, academia, to accelerate those efforts? How can we provide our technology? So this is how we are seeing it.
Okay, 1 billion users.
Yeah.
Wow, that's one of the moonshot goals that Google is famous for. Also, something that Google is famous for is, or maybe a certain vibe that comes along with Google is, everyone is always impressed of the achievements that can be done. Also, the short amount of time within things can be made possible. And we're going to speak about contrails in a bit, but contrails is also an area where there are startups and where there's a little bit of innovation, let's say. And I can imagine that whenever someone hears Google is also on it, as an entrepreneur, this is not a neutral information. So you definitely take a closer look. What exactly is the role of Google in this? And within contrail management, Google now also takes a very prominent role. But on a more general level, there's always this decision to open source innovations to make them available to everyone in the whole community.
Mhm.
Versus, of course, because it's a for-profit company, so you can also commercialize it. How do you go about making that decision?
So when it comes to climate change, we think this is not a problem that we can tackle alone, and no one can do it alone. So this area needs a radical collaboration. So this is how we are thinking, and this is what we are working towards. So when it comes to our sustainability efforts, let's start with the travel one. So everything is non-commercial. Everything is transparent, and we are providing all the data to all the industry players like airlines, academia. So we are collaborating with all of them. So for us, it's very important that it's non-commercial, and it's very important that it's transparent and everyone has the access. I mean, when it comes to the contrails, for example, that maybe we will touch now, but there is a high uncertainty, and this is what triggered us. Like, how can we help as Google to overcome that uncertainty, or even a little bit like decrease that uncertainty, so that the industry can benefit from this? This is how we are approaching this.
Right. Okay. This nicely leads to the project, which has been going on for a while, but there was a big marketing or media buzz, let's say, mid last year.
Yeah.
It was the project Contrails.
Yeah.
Could you explain our audience what this project was about and what was, let's say, disruptive about this?
Contrail avoidance is an area where our research team has been working a lot for a couple of years. And they have been looking at, as I said, like, how can we decrease the uncertainty? Can we provide a model to the airlines or the flight planners that we predict the contrail formation areas, and then they can use that model, and then they avoid the contrails. So like they reroute the flights so that we decrease the environmental impact of contrails. So this is what we have been doing. The thing that had happened last year, so we already had our model, and we already thought that we could prevent contrails with the model. But we wanted to prove that not only in the labs and with the simulations, we wanted to do it in the live tests, so to say. So Breakthrough Energy has been also working on contrails area and the modeling for a while. So as I said, radical collaboration is needed here, and we joined the forces with them. And American Airlines kindly accepted to be partner in this project to do the live tests. So 3 of us came together. And then we provided the breakthrough, and Google provided the model, so to say, to the American Airlines, and they rerouted flights to avoid contrails. And as you may have already seen it from the media, we have proved that there was a 54% reduction in the contrails with these live tests. I'm emphasizing the live test because there is a lot of simulation going on. There is a lot of like lab tests, and we think we can prevent the contrails. Like, a lot of universities are working on that. We are collaborating with them very closely. But I think having this live test also was super useful and helpful to all those academic researchers, so to say.
So the results of this project, they were put on a very nice website, and it was for everyone to understand. I think there was a massive value in there to communicate it and to raise awareness. However, in the contrail management community, of course, there were also voices. It's a very researchy topic, and there were also voices that said this was still a very brute forcey kind of approach.
American Airlines rerouted 70 flights. And then at the end of that, they saw that there was a decrease, 54% decrease of the contrail formation. And then, so how we are doing it, like in terms of the modeling, so we have tons of data that the model takes into account. And then, of course, we use machine learning. And when we apply artificial intelligence to the model, so that the contrail formation prediction is more accurate. So, of course, this was a test. So we haven't done it like across the fleet. So we provided the model, and American Airlines tested with 70 flights. We agree on the uncertainty, and we agree that we need to do a lot more, but we need to progress well as well. Like we need to have milestones, right? The first milestone was like, there was this famous paper saying that, oh, this is the impact of contrails. So it's like almost about the same amount of carbon emissions, or even it's double, but there's a high uncertainty and we cannot do anything. Okay, then a lot of researchers, including our team in Google, was very excited with this opportunity. Okay, instead of saying there's uncertainty and we can't do anything, we prefer, okay, can we do something on that to decrease the uncertainty? So that's where, you know, all the people working on the contrails started to come together and doing their own research and sharing the information with the other, so that like we progress. So there should be milestones where like till we go to the perfect world. So what I can say, this live test was a milestone on the contrails.
It certainly was. And this led to more projects that then opened up. And in terms of Google, what are or were the follow-up projects that resulted from that? Now, you mentioned that those 70 flights. Has the number of flights ever since increased, or what has been the development ever since?
So for the time being, what we would like to do, this was a test in the US with American Airlines. What we would like to do is like, we would like to have another test in Europe, because it's a different environment. Even the experience of the pilots is different. The air traffic is a little bit different. So we would like to do that. Of course, at some point, we would like to work with the airlines or flight operators to just scale it across the fleet. So those are the upcoming steps. Also, we are doing a lot of collaboration with the air traffic controllers. So we signed an agreement with Eurocontrol. They have been also working on that. Yeah. And then, of course, the research continues both within Google, but also we support the other universities and research organizations. We collaborate a lot with MIT, Cambridge, Imperial College, as well as Breakthrough.
Right. And in terms of scaling, what challenges do you see in order to scale this up?
So it's another set of information that either at the flight planning stage or like when you're on the flight, like the pilots need to take into consideration. So of course, everyone would like to see what it takes to ingest it into the operations, what is the cost of doing it, and also, you know, what is the additional fuel cost that will be created by rerouting the flights. By the way, that was also another milestone for us and for the industry when we have done the live test with the American Airlines. So they not only avoided 54% contrails, but also we showed that across the fleet, the fuel burn increase was only 0.3%. So it's not as much as like everyone thought. So it's just there's like operational things that they need to ingest, and it will take some time. And then the other is, of course, the first thing is the readiness of the models, right? If the models are ready. So I can say that we are about to be ready we can be ready anytime for the scaled operations. And then there is the ingestion to the operations, and then there is the cost of it. Of course, like everyone would like to show that when there is an increase in the cost, but also there is this impact on the CO2. So it's worth taking that risk, not a risk, but cost.
Do you have an opinion about a certain limit of fuel penalty that is okay, that should be considered okay?
I think that question should go to the airlines. That's their commercial model and decision, so to say. If you look at it from the like very straightforward idea is like, okay, what is the cost of the fuel that is caused by the preventing the contrails, and then what amount we avoided, and then what if we used something else to avoid that kind of thing, for example, SAF. So I think there are two sides of it. One of them is like what is the alternative cost and also the timing, because contrails, if you want to do it, you can do it now, and you can prevent the carbon emissions now. And then whereas in some of the high technologies, or like the future technologies, that you also need to wait a bit. And also for sustainable aviation fuel, again, I'm not an expert, but of course everyone knows that there is the piece that we are all talking about is the supply, right? So I think those are the things that they're looking at.
Do you think it's a philosophical question, the question that you just raised, whether you should avoid, the long-term effect with higher certainty, or the short-term effect with less certainty? Do you think it's a philosophical question, or do you think, no, we have all the metrics in place already and we can compare them and then we can make an absolute decision?
I think we are making a great progress about having all the metrics. I think it's just a matter of time that the airlines, or like any players in the industry, will have the ability to make that decisions by looking at the numbers.
That's a very positive outlook, and I want to share that as well. One more thing that I stumbled across when I looked at what Google does, from the distance, then I'm always impressed with the communication part, because right now this is a very researchy topic. It's a very technical topic, and it's very, very hard to understand, and it can be mixed up with all sorts of other effects that don't belong in the same corner. What Google, I think, did really well was last year this marketing buzz, and created a lot of attention, for this research result. What do you think could others in the ecosystem learn from Google to not only produce results, but also create the respective buzz?
That's an interesting question. So I think, for example, from our perspective, maybe I can just provide you an example. So because we are a platform with many users, one of our responsibilities is also educating the users. So if you look at the CO2 emissions numbers that we are showing in the platform for the time being, it's like how we started is like this. Okay, we need to inform our users that there is this amount of carbon emissions when they are taking this flight. So we started with the numbers. So we were saying, okay, your flight from Zurich to Munich is 150 kilograms of CO2. And then it didn't resonate, right? Because, okay, what does it mean, 150? So then we started like, okay, we need to tell them something else, that this flight is greener than the other one, but badging it, saying that, so among all the flights in this route, this one is X% greener than the average. Then we are showing a green badge. So then it resonated very well with the users, because then they can judge what does it mean 100 versus 50. So, but then we wanted to go a little bit further, and we wanted to show, okay, what is the equivalence of that, so that it resonates more with the users. So then we are now showing this amount of trees that you need to absorb that. So what I would like to say is, like, there is already a demand for the learning for certain things, but there's also like most of the things that needs to be done is also on the educational part. So for example, this contrails piece that we have published, and we wanted to make it so simple that everyone understands it, was important not only for the industry but also for the users, so that they're aware of that there is also this effect, and this means that, and then they can be avoided. So I think, like, everyone, every platform, every player has a different setting and different way of interacting with their users. From our perspective, we have our platform that we can inform our users and provide more information. From others, it could be something else. But I think it's basically educating the users, and in a simple manner, right? So no one is an expert in this area, and we don't want them to be, and they don't need to be, in order to make more sustainable choices. So we are putting a lot of effort to make it like understandable from the users.
I couldn't agree more, especially with contrail management, having also such difficult units, for example, for radiative forcing, that this is very hard to imagine for anyone who hasn't been studying this.
Yeah.
And so translating it into things that are associated to our everyday decisions makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And this education has helped the image of Google for sure. And also a partner in this was American Airlines. How has this helped American Airlines in terms of being perceived as sustainable by the consumer?
I really don't know that part, but I'm sure providing more information to their users would be helping, because they have done the live test. It's not that they're claiming that they're doing something. It's like they're kind of acting as one of the leaders in the industry. But maybe, yeah, it's a question to the American Airlines.
Fair enough. But the project was published alongside American Airlines. There's been some time now. Are there any other airlines which are being involved in actual trials that you're running?
Not yet, I can confirm externally, but we are working with a couple of airlines in Europe for the trial tests.
Yeah, I understand that. So it's still going to be exciting, and
Yeah, it's a lot to do. Yeah.
in many of the previous episodes, I said the same thing, that this year will also be a very interesting year. After the conference in by Eurocontrol in Canso last year, I think this set off a lot of momentum, and especially with the innovation fund this year, results coming out in September, I think it will still be very exciting. From your experience working with airlines, is there a fear of being perceived in the corner of greenwashing when doing this? Are they holding back because they still want to see and wait, what is happening in that area? What is the level of certainty? Or do they exactly know about the science and they just say, those who don't want to do it, they just say the science is not good enough? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's hard to say, right? Because when you say airlines, there are like a lot of airlines. So everyone is at a different stage. So what I can say is like we airlines are good partners of us, also from the Google flights. And what I can say, they are very collaborative, and they're working on this. I mean, CO2 emissions, but also the non-CO2 contrails. Some airlines have special departments working on this issue. Of course, they're aware of everything. So what I see from our perspective with our interactions with the airlines, they're very collaborative, and they're really looking into ways how they can do more, how they can test, how they can show that this can be done. Yeah, that's what I'm experiencing with them.
That makes sense. You said that the collaboration is great with airlines, which is super important because they are the ones bearing the fuel penalty, as you said earlier. Where could we improve the collaboration if you could place a wish?
I think it's not about improving the collaboration. I think it's more about how can we accelerate the effort so that everyone can do more. So I think like different parties play a different role. As I said, from our perspective, we are supporting research. We are doing research on our own. So we are trying to educate users. We are trying to provide our technology and tools to everyone in the industry. And also, we are trying to decrease the uncertainty together with the other researchers. So I cannot say that there is like a need for an improvement for the collaboration. I mean, from my perspective, right, like this is what we have seen. It's more like how can we find ways to accelerate? For example, I think this live test is a great example, because there has been a research for a long time, and then there were like simulations and lab tests. Okay, like we break through an American coming together and putting a live test there and showing the results, like helped a lot to everyone. So like I think those are the things that we have been discussing, that we are discussing. What can we do more to accelerate those efforts?
Yeah, we certainly need acceleration in this. Another great initiative that you have been pushing is the travel impact model, or TIM, as I like to say. We've discussed this with Dan Rutherford in one of the previous episodes already. So there is a certain basis for anyone who wants to dive deeper, can also do it there. And yet this came from Google. This is something, right? The model that you open source, that you developed. So where did this come from? What was the motivation to take this approach?
So the motivation was like, how can we show CO2 emissions to our users when they're planning their trip, like for a specific flight per passenger? And then we looked for a transparent, non-commercial, accurate model. and we couldn't find one. So we decided to build one. So we built travel impact model first for our own purposes. Like we just wanted to use it on our own platform, like for Google Flights. But then we saw that, okay, there's a need for that in the industry. And we said, we are just open sourcing it. So we have a web page, we have all the documentation in the GitHub, because transparency is the key. So now we are providing to the model to anyone and everyone in the industry, and I can proudly say that many of the big players already adopted the model, like Expedia, Skyscanner, and Booking.com, and then Sabre, Amadeus, Travelport. So we are part of Travelist Coalition, and Travelist Coalition is also using Travel Impact Model as the framework. So why is this important? Because why we are doing this is to educate users and help them to make more informed decisions. So if the user sees different numbers in different platforms, then it's even more confusing. So for us, consistency is critical to drive the user behavior change. So because we have the model, we said, okay, let's provide it to everyone so that everyone shows the same numbers to the users. But then there was this feedback from the industry, so to say, that there should be a separate body that is neutral and objective, so to say, for the governance of the model. So last year we put together an advisory committee where ICCT, then Rutherford, is acting as the secretariat. And then we have leading experts from academia, from NGOs, from airlines, as well as we have FAA and EASA as the observers in the advisory committee. And the idea of the advisory committee is like we have different work streams, and we are working towards improvement of the model. For example, contrails is one of them, right? So one work stream is contrails. So for the timing, we are showing carbon emissions, CO2. We are also taking into other 6 gases. So now it's CO2e, but also we don't have the contrails yet. And the advisory committee is working towards that. How can we include contrails to travel impact model? And there could be another work stream about SAF, because sustainable aviation fuel is the thing that's in the industry. When there is sustainable aviation fuel, how can we just reflect those efforts in the numbers as well? Yeah, that's the travel impact model. So it's basically an estimation model for the carbon emissions per passenger, and that's what we are showing to the users.
A quick note on the non-CO2 effects. What Dan mentioned was that there is work in progress with regards to the non-CO2 effects. And of course, the issue is if you just, apply a general factor to all of them, then it would just, double the emissions, but it doesn't change the behavior of the consumer. And that's the final goal behind this.
Sometimes they come to me, we go to the conferences, and then there's the panels and the keynotes, etc. And then the industry, like people from the industry, come to me and say, yeah, but if it's an estimation, why don't you just double the numbers? And I'm trying to explain them. So the idea of having those carbon emissions numbers is to inform users so that they can pick the lower emitting flights or, more sustainable choices if they want to. So if I just double the numbers from the user perspective, like it doesn't matter, like, because it's just like, you're doubling everything. So applying one blanket number to all the routes, all the flights, from our perspective, doesn't make sense. So that's why we are trying to find ways how we can differentiate, because also there's high uncertainty in that area, so that we can provide more information to the users about that.
So to round this topic off, what do you think is the role of the consumer in making sustainable travel decisions?
So what we are seeing from the different researchers that the different companies ran, users would like to see their impact, their environmental impact when they're traveling. And like most of the users, I think 80% of the users would like to travel more sustainably if it's possible. And when I say if it's possible, of course, everyone knows that the determining decision-making factor is the price when it comes to the flights for the time being. But when there is a certain difference in the price, so it's not like very expensive, more expensive, then they are willing to go for the lower emitting flights, so the greener options, so to say, or more sustainable options. So I think the consumers are so they would like to know more, and then when they know more, if they also want it to easy to understand so that they can digest it, the information, and then it should be effortless to take action. So planning a trip is already a very stressful moment for anyone. Like, think about yourself. I mean, like we are going a lot of holidays, and then it's 4 of us, and then everyone has their preferences, so it's already a very stressful moment. So then, like, you just like pick your flight, okay, that's the one. Then there are a lot of information, okay, price, time of the flight, and then suddenly there is this environmental impact as well. So if it's embedded to the user journey, of course they are willing to take the lower or like more sustainable choices. So I think our role is to educate the users, and when users get like more educated, they're willing to make those decisions towards more sustainable choices. Of course, the role of the users are critical, because at the end of the day, they are the ones who is making the decisions. But we are looking at from the perspective, how can we enable our users to have that choice, to have that educated mindset to make more sustainable choices.
This was a great sentence to round off this talking point that we had. And in our podcast tradition, there's always the moment where one guest passes on the question to the next. That is regarding an event which you guys are planning in a couple of days of time. And that's the Contrails workshop, where Google and Breakthrough organize essentially a get together of researchers and opinion leaders in the industry. Could you give some background of what this event will be about and why it's important?
It's part of our efforts about the collaboration in this area. So as I said, there is still high uncertainty, but we are all doing our job and working towards making it better and progress here. So this workshop will emphasize the importance of that, but not only that, there will be also like a lot of sharings, what we have learned, what Breakthrough learned, what the other industry players learned, and like sharing the data and the knowledge and the expertise. And there are like challenging questions that are still need to be answered in this area. So I'm sure there will be an amazing debate around those questions as well.
I'm very much looking forward to it. And of course, you also have the chance to pass on a question. And our next guest will be Jeremy Thompson from the British Airlines Pilots Association. So this will be the first time that we are including the perspective of a pilot or many pilots in there. Is there anything that could be tempting to ask him?
Yeah, so maybe we can ask the question to them, that what does it take for them or for pilots? How can we make their lives easier so that they can just act tomorrow to avoid contrails?
That's a good one, which I will take on. And that rounds off this episode, Sebnem. I hope we speak soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
It was a pleasure from my side.
Bye.
Bye-bye.